Just waiting on Kim to join me here. We're going to do a little interview on at-home learning, distance learning, homeschooling for those who all have been doing it already. So we're going to just talk together today. I'm waiting for her to join in just a second, and just discuss some of the things that we're going through, some tips from moms who have been doing this for a long time, ways that, oh, there she is. Let me let her in. Okay, here she comes. Hi, there she is. Hi, Kim. Oh, wait, let me unmute you.
Oh,
Let's try that. Every time I meet with someone, I have to do the whole, oh, wait, let me
yep.
unmute you. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
It's good to see you because
You too.
I literally haven't seen you in like a month.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's so crazy.
Weird.
I don't even know. I really don't even know. But
I don't even know either. And so today, Kim, I have invited you to talk with me about homeschooling. And for those of us who have just stepped into this, we're calling it distance learning.
yes.
Or I forget what some of the other names are.
Quarantine schooling, I've seen a lot.
Quarantine schooling, yeah.
Yep.
It's been a quick shift into a new way of doing life around here and for every other family.
Well, for everyone, I mean, even for homeschoolers, this is not homeschooling right now, what's happening. So it's different for everybody. My kids aren't used to being home either.
Because you guys do it. Well, okay, so before we go into that, I would love for you to tell us a bit about that. But why don't you first explain SALT to us and kind of tell us what that is?
SALT is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that I founded along with several other members of GCC. And basically what it is, our idea with it was not to create another co-op because there are a lot of really good ones in our area and we don't need to recreate something else that's already out there. So we wanted to create something that was more what moms are craving, and that's community. Community for themselves and community for their children. So that's what we've done with SALT. We get together and we do fun things and educational things, but the activities that we do is the vehicle by which the community is formed and the relationships are developed. They are not the reason why we get together. So it's just a little bit different than a lot of other homeschool groups out there, because a lot of other groups are focused on the activities, and that's great because there's a need for that for sure. But there's just this craving for relationship that's out there, and so we're trying to meet that need in our community.
I would say that's probably what everybody is feeling right now more than anything, the need for community. And so we don't have that. None of us have that. So you're really understanding that need, that need for interaction and finding ways. Of course, all of the Zoom meetings across the land happening all day long everywhere.
Right.
I wonder if we'll ever miss it. I'm like, will we miss the Zoom meetings? I don't think we ever will. I don't know.
Someone asked me why, her daughter asked her why God was letting this happen. And she asked me for advice on how to answer that. I said, that's too deep. I'm not going to get into all of that. But I said, I think part of it is so that when we come out of this on the other side, that we have more of an appreciation for each other, and that we kind of get back to this place of letting the relationships come first and letting the people in our lives come first, and not being so busy doing that we're missing out on that best yes of the people that God's putting in front of us that need us. So hopefully that we take that away from this.
That's said by a true extrovert, because I'm a true introvert. And there's a part of me that I love to be extrovert when I need to be, but I'm okay with being at home, to be honest with you. And I have a hard time coming out of it. I love community, small pieces, but I'm going to have a hard time coming out of this and just re-engaging with the world again. So
I know a lot of people who feel the same way. I've already warned my non-hugger friends to be prepared, because they're going to get lots of hugs and they're just going to have to learn how to deal with it.
One of my favorite quotes right now, Beth Moore wrote, I think on Twitter, that she said something like, the new style coming out of this will be elastic waist pants, and all other pants are called hard pants. And so we'll have to put our hard pants on and get back out again and try I have a couple questions. I don't want to keep you real long, because I know that you are a schooling mom, and honestly, we'll probably both have interruptions in this, and that's part of That's part of it. And so
Yeah.
I would just actually, I'm throwing this one on you. I didn't prep you with this question, but
Yeah.
interruptions. I think the one thing I'm finding in my home right now is constant, we're interrupting each other. I'm interrupting someone else's meeting. How do you deal on a daily basis with interruptions?
With a lot of grace. It's hard because I think I just go into my day knowing that the interruptions are going to happen, and I try to plan for them and know that an activity that should take us 5 minutes could potentially take us a half an hour.
Mm.
And just being realistic in what I'm expecting of myself and what I'm expecting of the kids. And even as they're getting older, letting them help each other to reduce my interruptions. So like if Olivia needs help reading her chore chart, instead of coming to me, now she knows she can go to Jacob and Lucas. And it might seem like a little thing, but if I'm all the way in the back of the house trying to because I work from home too. So if I'm at the back of the house in my office time trying to get my emails and my phone calls done, that back and forth walk up to it's a big deal.
Yeah, you lose a lot of time wasting going on there.
Yeah, yeah.
Not effective.
It's just a matter of having realistic expectations, I think, and knowing it's going to happen, and knowing there's really not a whole lot you can do about it. Unfortunately, it's just part of being home with kids.
Well,
There's
and I'll say
interruptions.
on this side of homeschooling, because I have teenagers and all of their stuff
Right,
is online, I don't really have to do a whole lot of managing. Our school manages almost all of it, which is
right.
amazing. But you get to my age where they're 14 and 16 and 21, and you kind of feel like they never interrupt you anymore. I mean, they do
Yeah.
have some moments of that, like, bickering and that kind of thing. I have to step in occasionally.
Yeah,
But
like Riley dancing on the countertop when you're filming a cooking show, for example.
that's a daily activity. Like he does this thing where he like pounces up onto the counter like this, and I'm like, get off! What are you doing? But as they get older, those interruptions kind of disappear. So the great old, you'll miss those. You'll miss
Yeah,
those interruptions. I think I try to think of it now that I'm on this side of that.
right.
I try to embrace some of those interruptions. I still get annoyed sometimes.
Yeah. Oh,
But,
yeah, for sure. There's definitely moments where grace is not
right.
what happens, but
So
I try very hard for it to be.
giving them grace, giving yourself grace, being
Right.
gracious in this time is very important.
Absolutely.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, and I actually don't even know how much you do this. I know you are heavily involved in church. SALT is
Hmm.
through generations. Um,
Right.
but incorporating Jesus into homeschool is something that we get to do right now. We don't have,
Hmm.
a lot of us don't have time in the school year to develop a teaching system, a way of educating our kids about the Bible. And I think it's
Right.
so important. So how have you found ways in homeschooling to incorporate some Bible teaching with your kids?
Um, I find that mostly it happens during science time. It just kind of is a natural, when we're talking about the creation and biology and even earth science and astronomy and just the way the world was put together and the universe was put together. And there's so many moments for talking about it. It's not this accident, it's God's plan. And letting them recognize that. And it's even gotten to the point now where I say things like that so often. We were noticing, I'm trying to think of what animal it was. It was a particular butterfly that Olivia noticed. And she said, I bet God made it that way on purpose because I almost didn't see it on that flower. And so in her mind, like she's recognizing camouflage as God's design, so I think that's one of the big ways. And then also in literature, when we're reading, trying to be intentional and having conversations with them about the characters in the books that we're reading, leaving it very open-ended. Do you think that this person's a believer? Why or why not? How are they acting in a way that it's reflecting that? And how would this situation have gone differently if they were acting as a believer? Just so they can kind of start to recognize, those interpersonal relationships and what's happening in other people's lives and how they can then apply it in their own as a Christ follower.
What a gift. I have to say what a gift that is. I mean, being in Christian school, we've done homeschool Christian school, and we're in public school right now, and it's a great, amazing school. But you don't
Mhm.
have the freedom to talk daily through, even though some of our teachers may have a Christian background and would want to, you just can't. And so I think
Yeah.
this time at home, I would just say to our parents, I think you would probably echo this, embrace this time, and do some of the things that you don't get to do, and talk with them about some of the things that they're learning, as much as as much as you get to
Mhm.
them about their schooling, um,
Yes.
about how God is in. I love that God is in
Right.
science. God
Right.
is all over. So God created science.
Right.
He
Right.
created it. And you don't get to teach that in the middle of a school year with your kids. I
No.
mean, when they're doing homework, you're just trying to get the assignment done. And
Of
you're not
course.
like, well, let's stop and take a step back and think about how God did, you want
Right.
to do that, but you don't
Right.
have the freedom.
Right.
So
Right.
I think it's super valuable. And I would say that's definitely a great opportunity. I keep saying that this is God's opportunity for our families to refocus,
Absolutely.
to like
I
look
was
in.
just about to say that, actually. Like,
Mhm.
looking at this time of, he is forcing us to stop and put him first. And just put him in everything, and take this time with our kids. And for all of the kids that are going to be going back to school in the fall, most likely is when they'll be back, I would imagine. When they'll be going back in the fall, like, those little conversations you have now, when they talk about those things at school going forward, it'll be in the back of their mind, and they might not be able to have the conversation about it, but you're planting those seeds in their hearts. It's so important.
I think that's so seeds. It's exactly what I would say. Cause you can't teach them the whole entire, like, don't tackle teaching the whole entire Bible right now.
No, no.
As you're going, I think it's in Deuteronomy 6, it says, when you're walking down the road, when
Right.
you lie down, and when you get up,
Right.
and in those ways, just having conversations as you're going about your daily activities, and talking about how God is in and around it, or
Absolutely.
recognizing the absence of God in some things and saying, I don't really see a whole lot of God in that. Love that
Right.
you do that with literature. Okay,
Yeah.
so love that. So here's a phrase I feel like everyone is saying that's an educator at home right now. I feel overwhelmed. I'm so going crazy. I don't know. So how would you speak to ways of managing the overwhelmedness? Because you work from home, you're a mom, you're a wife, you volunteer at church, you're an educator. Talk about you're overwhelmed, and talk about how you
Yeah.
manage that.
We do SALT. One of our things that we do is we offer a homeschool info night every spring that unfortunately has been put on hold for right now. But one of the things that we discuss at that is the myths about homeschooling. And one of the myths that we talk about is that homeschool moms are mythical, magical, unicorn moms with patience of a saint. And it's not true. It's just not. Like, we're not any different than every other mom. We get frustrated with our kids. We yell at our kids. We get overwhelmed. And I think it's just a matter of you having to recognize in yourself what your triggers are. Where are your anger triggers coming from? Is it that when you're hungry, when you're thirsty, when you're hot, like, all those things are different anger triggers for people, and recognizing that, and also recognizing them in your kids. When are your kids getting sluggish? What do they need? And just trying to meet those basic needs first, because if you don't do that for yourself and for your kids,
Right.
your day falls apart. And I would say my days are always better when I start in the Word, without fail. It's amazing to me how many times, like, we're going through the New Testament reading challenge with GCC right now, and I was falling a little behind, and I got to this one part where I know the story. It's Jesus feeds the 5,000. I've read it a million times. I know the story inside and out, or so I thought. And I, for whatever reason, even though I had intended to just gloss over it, I really started reading it. And I just picked up on this one little piece of it that I never picked up on before. And God spoke to me in that. And I then later on, the kids had an issue come up, and it was related directly to that verse that God spoke to me. So because we're in this season of having all the time in the world to do things, I pulled them aside, and we sat down and we talked about it, and we looked at their behavior compared to this verse, and they all, for their copy work, had to write out the verse.
I love that.
But if I didn't stop and spend the time with God in the morning, I wouldn't have had that verse on my heart to use in that moment. And that moment would have gone way differently.
You're echoing, I call those spiritual echoes when those line up like that, though. That was one of the things that
Yeah.
you and I are reading the plan together, and that's been so
Yeah.
fun. But one of the things that Johnny has challenged us as a team is, or maybe it was Mickey, what somebody on our team said, just be ready for conversations, and how you get ready for those, how you mentally and spiritually get ready is to be in the word. And then God
Yeah.
will give you the talk
Mhm.
points. He'll give you
Right.
the reinforcement. Cause I think sometimes we don't know how to, we have a lot of meetings right now with Zoom and all of the
Mhm.
counseling and this kind of thing. And so you don't always know what to say. And I have found almost every time that God's word has lined up perfectly in what I need
Right.
for that moment, or even just for my own mental state where I'm at. I'm with you on that. That is so good.
Right. And something else about being overwhelmed too is it goes back to the grace, like giving yourself grace and recognizing sometimes a teacher might assign your kids something that you don't know what they want from them, and they're frustrated and you're frustrated. And I think recognizing that it's okay to walk away from that, because above all else, your relationship with your kids matter more than any academic assignment that they're getting right now from their teacher. So it's just so important to give yourself the grace to say, you know what, this whole time in school right now,
Mhm.
the schools are just doing the best they can because they don't know what to do, just like the rest of us. um, but if it comes down to them missing that one assignment, it's not going to matter.
Mhm.
It's really not.
One of my main parenting things that I have to remind myself is that rules without relationship equals rebellion. It's
Mhm.
the three R's. And I think, with school, it's easy to get frustrated, and because I don't know how to teach a lot of the things that my kids are older now, and it's hard to know what to teach. And so I think that's one of the things you just have to make sure the relationship comes before the rule. And
Yeah.
it doesn't mean you give them what they want or let them quit or back down, but
No.
you have to remember the relationship and
Right.
keep that moldable and teachable.
Right. Like you have to take those moments. Like I use an example all the time. Like Lucas, this was a couple years ago. He was pretty little. He was the only one at home. The little ones were at preschool still. And we were just struggling this day. We were just not on the same page, and we were butting heads, and he was getting really frustrated and I was frustrated because I knew he knew it. And there was this moment and I was just like, you know what? We're done. Like, I don't care that we're going to miss out on this math assignment and we're going to be behind, whatever that means. And we went out in the woods and we were playing out in the woods behind our house. And we spent the entire afternoon and we had the best day. I mean, this is years later and I still remember, and I know he does. That day and that time together was so much more important than the fact that that math lesson took 2 days instead of one.
Totally true. You will remember that even more the older he gets. You will hold on to
Hmm.
those special moments. Okay, so one last question, and then we'll let
Yep.
you go, get back to your life. How much time do you recommend parents? I mean, okay, so for me, the time's already dictated. We have from 9 to noon every day. They have no way to get out of that. They have to be there and report to class. But for other
Right.
people, it's kind of whenever they want to get it done. So how
Right.
much time do you think is good for a kid to be in school?
It's an interesting question because really, if you look at the bigger picture, they're learning all day long. Their life is an education. So everything that you do can become an education. You can go bake some cookies, and
Yes.
there's chemistry and fractions and a million other things that there could be. So as far as sit down at the school table, for primary, an hour a day tops. And for kindergarten, that's pushing it. I mean, I don't think my kindergartners ever spent more than 45 minutes a day sitting at a table. As they get into older elementary, a couple hours a day. Middle school, maybe 3, high school 4 tops. And that's like sit down math worksheets, reading. But then, especially with the younger ones, going out and exploring in the woods and collecting leaves and watching for bugs and building with blocks, and everything that you do is an education if you look at it that way.
For sure.
So
I think that's really important to remember too, and not to get frustrated with trying to cram it into the worksheet that has to be done only. Like
yeah.
taking breaks. I mean, even our school is incorporating breaks and
Yeah.
giving them a chance to breathe, and I love that because
Yeah.
staring at a screen is we got to understand it's going to be frustrating for
Oh,
them. It hurts their
absolutely.
mind and their eyes, and so
Hmm.
giving them some grace and taking
Right.
breaks is
Right.
really
I
important.
mean, think about it as an adult. If you go to any of the larger conferences you would go to as an adult, the breakout sessions are what, 45 minutes?
And that's
because you need a break, you know, and by the end of those, you tune out at some point or another in that 45 minutes, you know?
say you have
So,
the attention of a child about the age that they are. So if they're 2, you got
right,
minutes. If they're 10, you've got about 10 minutes to say and get done what you need to get done. That's not very
right.
much time.
No, it's not.
Well, Kim, you are, it's a blessing to see you today and to talk with
Me
you. And
too.
thank you for sharing some
Of
tips with us
course.
and for doing
Absolutely.
homeschool and leading our group at church. We appreciate you.
Yep. Of course. We appreciate you.
All right. Well, we'll
Miss
see
you,
you later,
friends.
sister. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.